Hi, everyone. Welcome to Aquarist Assemble, a new podcast brought to you by Creekwood.aquatics. Creekwood.aquatics is a small aquaculture company based out of Floresville, Texas, where we specialize in the production of live foods like Daphnia, phytoplankton, rotifers, and we started dabbling in aquaculturing some of our own fish. So we started breeding our betas. We have guppies, killies, and other types of African cichlids. You can find out more about us by going to our website, Creekwood.aquatics.com, or following us on social media at Creekwood.aquatics. Aquarist Assemble is supposed to be a podcast for aquarists by aquarists. I'm hoping to bring my guest on, and we're going to talk about things that led us into the hobby, some of the things that we've learned throughout the way, some good stories, some stories about sometimes the struggle, the pain of trying to run these types of operations or just your own aquarium at home. And first, we're going to start with my story. Again, I'm Nelson. I'm the owner of Creekwood.aquatics. I founded this company back in 2023, last year basically. We started back in May. And it started with the idea of let's produce live foods locally. And bring those to the aquarists in the San Antonio, Floresville area. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of live foods, I guess. There wasn't a huge variety. Occasionally you had the black worms, but I saw copepods, but I didn't see anything like rotifers. I didn't see Daphnia. I didn't see any of that stuff. So I decided, let's try to bring this to the Texas market, and let's make these things affordable so that people will come by and they'll continuously buy from us. These animals are easy to reproduce at home, but it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of heartache, and I want to be there to kind of take that. So you buy these bugs from me, you feed them to your fish are happy, you come back and you buy some more. That's the idea behind the Creekwood.aquatics. But we are going to start. Let me change to my screen. There we go. About the beginnings of Creekwood.aquatics. There I am. I do not know how old I am in this photo. Maybe my mom might know. But I mean, it all starts back with this guy. He's always had a passion for animals. Growing up, it's hard talking about yourself sometimes. But growing up, all I ever wanted to do was work with animals. It wasn't necessarily fish, but anytime I would be walking home and I would find a bird or a rabbit or something on the streets, I would bring it home, we would nurse it back to health, and we'd release it. And I always knew that when I grew up, I wanted to do something with animals. In the beginning, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then as you start to get older, you start realizing that maybe being a veterinarian necessarily isn't. I don't want to work with sick animals all the time. I want to work with healthy animals. I want to work on keeping them healthy. So, you have to kind of find yourself in that. And eventually I did. Here's an old picture of an old shop I used to work at called Animals and Things. They are now closed. They were located in Woodbridge, New Jersey. They were right across the street from my high school. And when I was in high school, of course, I needed to make some money so I could buy a car, buy clothes that I wanted, different things. And I had no idea what paying bills were or responsibilities were. I just wanted a cool job. So one day I walked across the street and I filled out an application and I talked to one of the managers and I said, "Hey, you guys looking to hire?" They said, "Not now. They're in the middle of getting rid of someone," but I was more than welcome to fill out an application. So I filled out that application. I turned it into the manager, and I remember I walked out the little double doors, and then I paused for a minute. And I said, "Well, you know what? Why not me?" So I walked back in, and I walked to the manager, and I said, "Well, you're in the middle of firing someone. Why don't you give me a shot? And he said, oh, okay. So it was really cool. I had to go get all my working papers, get all that stuff in order. Have my parents sit in for a drug test. Of course, it passed. I was 16, 17 at the time. I was super lame. So of course I was going to be fine. But I started working at this place that I thought was my dream job, and it was my dream job. I got to start working with fish. I started learning about freshwater, brackish water systems, African cichlids, marine systems. My first ever experience with a reef system. I didn't even know you can own corals when I was 16. I was like, are these illegal? But no, they're not. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Here I am, just being a little goofy 16, 17-year-old, and just not realizing that this small little high school job that I have is going to set myself up for the rest of my career. The knowledge that I gained here was like the basis of everything that I do now. That job led to, well, I worked there. I worked at PetSmart for a while, and then I got a job working at this restaurant that had this aquarium. And I started off as an animal care specialist at the time. It was very entry level, but this was my first time working with one of these giant, massive 4,000-gallon systems with all these mature, old, beautiful fish that I only got to see the small baby versions. And now I was seeing unicorn tanks. I was seeing flamingo tanks. I was seeing giant black edge groupers. There was a mini odyssey here at one point. Giant naso tanks. It was fantastic. Like, this was my dream, but it didn't stop there. So my passion for animals and for nature didn't stop there. Back then, I was in between cars. I had one car break down. I was in the middle of purchasing another car. So I would tend to walk home from the mall. I wouldn't tell my parents, Mom, if you're listening, just skip about 10 minutes, 15 minutes ahead. But so sometimes I would walk home, all right? I would take the bus from the one mall and I would go to Woodbridge Center Mall. And then from Woodbridge Center Mall, I would walk along the train tracks. The freight trains, these things went like 10 miles an hour. They were super slow, but they weren't very active on these tracks. Don't ever do this. Bad idea. But as I was walking home, I would always notice these small little rivers or these small bridges or these little areas that people really didn't go to. So there was a lot of stuff in there that I wanted to see. There was different fish species, there was turtles, there was newts, there was a lot of stuff. So I would kind of, on my way home, sometimes I would start poking around and seeing what I could find. Like this Canadian goose right here. I would come across her on my way, walking home. And I always saw her there sitting on her eggs. And I had always went to Wendy's right before I went home, so I'd always have an extra junior bacon cheeseburger. So I would toss her the bread. I would eat, give her the bread, give her the lettuce, just give her some energy. She was always sitting on those eggs. She wasn't really going anywhere. But I got to see those babies hatch. And that was a really cool, amazing experience. These were some of the little bridges that I found with the little rivers going through, and these were full of crappies, whatever you want to call them. There's a bunch of sunfish, bass, phenomenal. And I'm sorry about the quality of these pictures. These pictures were taken back in like 2007 on a like Nokia Express, whatever. And I'm really surprised a lot of these pictures actually transferred over. Actually, some of these might have been on my G1 or my Touch from T-Mobile. But yeah, some of the pictures survived. So We got them. Yeah, this is me finding some little green leopard frogs in the river. Took my shoes off because I don't want to get my shoes wet. Here's a picture of me when I went to Florida and I was fishing out some bass from the local ponds over there. This is when I first started fishing. I didn't know anything about it. I realize right now that I'm holding the fish the wrong way. This is probably not great, but I learned a lot. This fish returned him to the water, took the hook out. Again, you can see that appreciation that I had for these animals. I was so excited. Just my face, just to get a chance to be near this thing was like absolutely phenomenal. We go back to when I worked at that small aquarium. And these are some of our quarantine systems. So we usually brought the fish in here for 30 days, quarantine, observation, medication, feed them good food, give them the best odds of surviving on exhibit. And these guys survived once they got on exhibit. Eventually, I became the manager of the aquarium in that area, and this is what we turned it into. Our main focus was husbandry. We got in here and we scrubbed these tanks 3 hours a day. We would start from the little middle sections. We worked from the bottom to the middle. Next day we would do the top, and then we'd go over to the other side. We'd work our way down. At the same time, I had another diver tandem diving in the other exhibit, scrubbing that for 3 hours. Like, we did a lot of scrubbing, a lot of husbandry, and it made the fake rocks and the fake corals so bright, and that brightness, helped accentuate the fish, just made the fish pop. Like, look at that little Garibaldi, or a little orange fish in the center. What a great experience. I love this place. I miss this place. And honestly, if this aquarium was still around, I probably still would have been doing that. I probably would have been a lifer at this company, because at this time I thought I was living the dream. I always wanted to work in a small aquarium, and I was doing it. Here are some of the examples of some of the fish that we got to work with. So we have our, who is this? Oh, I know it's my unicorn. I think this is my Brevirostis. That's my Brevirostis right here. There's a French grunt above him, or blue line, or I can't remember what type of grunt that was. There's a panther grouper off to this little left side over here. Just fantastic. There's my blue spot. I call this boy Goliath. He was like 16 inches. He was just pure mass of a unicorn tank. And everybody got out of his way. He wasn't a big bully, but he was a big fish, and he just used to plow through everything. He was just such a fantastic fish. I miss working with him. Oh God, he was beautiful. And then here's a small 800-gallon tank. This is where my fish started their journey. They would come here, they would grow up here, and once I got them around 4 or 5 inches, then they would transfer over to the larger exhibit, some of the larger fish. But yeah, this was a nice grow system. It was a beautiful grow system. Here's my old pump room. This is where all the magic happened. This was our filtration. This was a point of pride for me. It was imperative that once a week we wipe these systems down. So every single pump, every sand filter, we sprayed with Armorall, we scrubbed, we took all the salt creep off of all the motors, all the pipes, whatever. I wanted this thing to be where this thing was presentable at all times. So whenever my boss came by to check up on everything, this is what I wanted to do. The other thing too is we took out all the old salt creep. So if any other salt creep built up on these systems, I would know there was a leak. I know we had to address it. We had to open up, fix the seals, lubricate gaskets, all that good stuff. But this was no joke. This was, if I came back from my weekend and I saw this wasn't wiped down, I was like, guys, we have a serious problem. but this was such a beautiful thing. This is a story for a later time. This is Hurricane Sandy. I don't believe we have footage of Hurricane Irene, but this was a kind of a breaking point. Again, this is a story for another time, but this is a moment where we lost our house. All my aquariums at home were lost. There was power outage in New Jersey that lasted about 3 days, and it was really tough. It was a real tough time, going back and forth between my house that no longer existed, all things that I've ever owned gone, but I had a job to do and I had an exhibit to run, and basically we built these battery backup units. We made them out of marine boat batteries. We had an AC/DC charger, and then we put in a receptacle that we can plug in our bilge pumps, so they circulate and add oxygen to the water. And those batteries were good for about 24 hours, continuously. So again, remember, we don't have power. We don't have power in the state of New Jersey, right? But my father had a generator at the property, at the house, and we were trying to get all the water out of the basement. So I figured 2 birds with 1 stone. So I would go to the rainforest every morning, pick up my batteries that were being depleted. I would swap them out with the good battery. I would take the depleted battery back to my parents' house, and as they were pumping water with their pump that was connected to the generator, I was hooking up my battery backup units to this generator, getting a charge, charging it for 2 or 3 hours, and then going back to the aquarium, swapping out those batteries. And by day 3, things were getting really desperate because we haven't had power, and fuel was really hard to come by because all the gas stations had gas, but they didn't have electricity to get the gas from under the ground. So after day 3, I was like, things are going to start going Mad Max here. We're going to have some fuel wars. There's going to be riots. Like, people are not happy. But the main point of this story, and again, the longest story is for another time, and I'll definitely tell it. It's a very interesting story. But my job was to go back and forth, charge these batteries, bring them back, swap them, keep my fish alive. During this event, we didn't lose a single fish. And it was all due to the little battery backup pumps that we got running. Such a great story. Other things that we did at this place was, of course, there was animatronics, and once a year, we would pull the animatronics, we'd bring them down to the basement, we'd take off their skin, and we would fix all the solenoids, fix all the airlines, patch anything that had to get patched. We fixed these things up, we got them back out. People didn't even miss them. These things were downstairs for maybe a week, back upstairs, no one even knew they were gone. So the story behind this one is under the mall we had a place called the Creekwood. It was just an area that was directly under us, that we had access to for some of the show features. So a lot of the aquarium plumbing ran under there. A lot of the airlines, the hydraulic lines for the animatronics, they ran under there. And one day we had to basically replace one of those hydraulic lines. We had to pull it from from our pump room. So we disconnect these lines and we start pulling them, and we get snagged up. And we can't figure out where this thing is stuck. And this line is in between the creepy room and the space above, and we're like, wow, this is really bad. So we had to journey farther into the creepy room than we ever have before. It was this long hallway that was pitch black, and it was scary. We had a little tiny flashlight, and we started making our way deeper and deeper into the creepy room, and we get to this area where there's just one light, just like random light. We don't know who controls this light. It's just always on, but it was still really dark, and we saw this figure, and we're like, "Oh my God, who's that?" So we start saying, "Who are you? Like, what are you doing here?" And there's no response. We just like, "Whoa, this guy is not right." And then we turn on the flashlights, and this mannequin was just placed here, just freakishly placed here. It was one of the spookiest things I've ever seen, and I guarantee this thing is still there. Nobody ventured into the creepy room. It was that's so much. This was my last day at this aquarium before they shut down. This is my daughter here. This was our first time and last time I got to show her this aquarium that I worked so hard on for 7 years. This was bittersweet. Again, she was a baby. She was only about 1 or 2 at the time, but I got to take my photo with her. I got to show her some fish, and I got to keep this memory with me forever. Yeah, we do this hobby because we enjoy it. We also do this hobby because this is how we provide for our families. I just wanted my daughter to know, like, this is how your dad supported you. He supported you by doing the thing that he loved and by creating an awesome aquarium. But it never stops. It only stops when you let it stop. There were so many points in my career where I just could have stopped. I could have stopped after animal things, and I could have got myself a real career. When I worked at PetSmart, I stopped after that because I kind of fell out of love with the hobby. Because when you work for a big box store, it limits your creativity, it limits how much you learn. It's a cool gig for younger kids, but for someone like me who just wants to constantly push boundaries and find cool animals to display and do all this and that, PetSmart just wasn't it for me. And then we had this aquarium, and 7 years of my life. When I became a manager, I was 21 or 22 at the time, and I was the youngest aquarium manager of the company. And I always took that as a point of pride. Like, I worked and I did everything I had to do to get to this level, right? I beat out all my peers. I did all this stuff. Like, I made this happen. I made my dream happen. And then we got word that, they were shutting down this aspect of the aquarium. And at that point, you have 2 choices. You can either just give up, get a normal job, or you can continue to build yourself, build your knowledge, and grow. And that's what I did. I continued to grow. Especially after the hurricane, where I lost all my animals at home. I didn't think I was ever going to build more aquariums at home, and I did. That itch doesn't go away. So So I built more African cichlid tanks. I did a lot more African cichlid breeding. I used to take these fish and I would bring them to the local shops and I would trade them into store credit. And I would take that store credit and I would buy more fish food and I would take that fish food home, feed my fish, make more fish, trade them in for more store credit. I don't do store credit anymore. I have a business now. Like, yeah, we got to make money. But for a 17-year-old to 25-year-old, this was gravy. This was great. Here we go. This was the turning point for me. Up until this point, all the knowledge that I gained, I learned on my own. I read books. I went on every single fish website, fish forum back in the day, watched thousands of YouTube videos. Sorry about that. We're trying to do this live and my Roomba decides to go off. All right, where was I? Oh, like I was saying, so up until this point, all the knowledge that I've gained, I've curated myself. I've learned myself. But working for Absolutely Fish, it's a small fish shop in Clifton, New Jersey. I recommend that if you are in the area, go to this store. It is an amazing store. The employees are amazing. The owner is amazing. The knowledge, the experience you're going to have at this place is amazing. But yeah, working here was basically a boot camp in aquarium husbandry. When we started, the owner basically said, in the beginning, you don't talk to his customers. Like in the beginning, I'm learning from the management staff. I'm learning from his senior staff. I'm taking his test, the M1, basically until I had a working knowledge of the fish and the products and all the things at the store. Basically, if somebody asks for help in my first couple of weeks there, I find someone else and I listen to all the things they have to say. And that, again, was one of the greatest professional experience I ever had, because I learned so much through all the experience I was in that store. And then when I got my chance to take the freshwater test that they had for us, and I did okay. I did great. I did okay. For some reason, like when I'm trying to learn things, they don't sink in. They kind of just find an area of my brain that's not being used. It kind of hangs out, and it is not till like weeks or months later where it's just like a flashlight, like clicks on, and then it's my knowledge forever. But it was a big accomplishment when I took the M1 test and I passed, and then I was able to start helping people in the marine section, the reef section. But that was just a store work. I got hired as an aquarium tech to do maintenance at clients' homes. And the really cool part about that is that when you go to a client's house, it's the first time, and things aren't always perfect. You know, they need the help. That's why they reach out. That's why they call Absolutely Fish and they ask for their aquarium maintenance department. They say, hey, we need a little bit of help. So they send us out here. We come across things like this. This is an okay tank. It's a tank that's trying to mature and there's stuff going on, and you know, we're there to help. So we start by, of course, doing our water testing. We find out where all the levels are. We make some adjustments. We do our water changes. We scrub. We siphon out the cyanobacteria that's up there. Change the filters out. We do all that stuff. And as long as the client is willing to work with us and takes our recommendations, buys the right products, We always sold them the right products. We never tried to sell them extra things just to make that sale. We sold the clients what they need. And when you follow those steps, it's a slow process. When you're trying to rehab a reef system, it is a slow, painful process. But again, you follow all those steps, bam. This is the same aquarium. This is the same aquarium about a year later. And look at the difference. Not a speck of cyano, not a speck of hair algae anywhere. The coral growth is exponential. There's more species, more varieties. I don't think we added a ton of more fish. It was mostly corals, mostly softies. Um, but night and day. I mean, let's look. There's the beginning, and there's the end. Right around the time that I moved on to my next career. But again, the knowledge that I gained, the experience I gained from this place, life changing, life changing. There's me again, happy old me with my African cichlids. I love my African cichlids. I've bred so many fish in my life, but there's just something about African cichlids. They will always draw me back in. That and betas are my weakness. So I did say eventually I did end up leaving Absolutely Fish for another career. This is something that I'm not going to get into too much, but basically I flew out to Texas. I interviewed for a job, flew back to Texas, flew back to New Jersey on the same day because I had to work. I was still working at Absolutely Fish. I still had a bunch of clients to do it. It's the type of job where, like, if you take a day off, the next day you have to work twice as hard. So basically, I made this a one-day trip. And when I made this trip, this is like when I started Creekwood.aquatics. I basically had $500 in my bank account. And I applied for a bunch of different jobs around the country. And by the end, I settled on 2 jobs. And they were both in Texas. Lucy, come back. They were both in Texas. And I had to choose which one am I going to fly to. I can only afford to fly to one. I can only afford to take one day off. Just go away. Come on. So I feel like, and I know that I made the right choice. Because again, I got the job. Spoiler was, I got the job. I got the career. I had to kick my dog out because he was growling at the wind. But yeah, I made the right choice, and I was able to get the career that I wanted. I was still able to support my family. I met my then girlfriend, now wife. We were able to buy our home, buy our cars, and just live a comfortable life. But again, these are all the incremental steps I made. Started off working at a pet shop in New Jersey, and now I'm doing my dream job. This was our second apartment in San Antonio. And at this point in my career, or in the hobby, I was really, really big into fish breeding. And I finally had space. I had space. Did I? I had space to do something bigger. So we decided to go bigger. And we got these 40-gallon tanks. There's one, it's coming, but yeah, there's one here. There's the lights. I have a bunch of, I think these are 2.5-gallon tanks over here. There's a couple 5-gallon tanks over here. And this was basically the humble beginning of Creekwood.aquatics without actually knowing it. Um, we bred a lot of cool things. We bred these blue shrimp. We had some betas there. We bred discus. The discus had fry, but they never thrived. We did the epistogramas. I got one clutch of eggs in them, and then I lost them. We had our marine system. We didn't really do a lot with that. We just had our black clowns and some corals and stuff. Um, that one, I think, just naturally just phased itself out over time. Here was one of the tanks that I was super proud of. This was our South American system. We had the big Rarus, we had the Discus, different Geophagus, Pink Chelseas, bunch of angels. This tank had a lot of action in it. We had the plants in here too. We did split substrate, so we did sand on one side, gravel on the other. We fed supplements. We did liquid CO2, different plant fertilizers. I mean, these Amazon swords were getting real tall. They were making little babies. We're popping those off, popping those back in the substrate, growing those again. That's something that I do want to do again when I have space. Not in my current setup. I'm waiting until I get stuff out into the shed in my dedicated fish room. There goes the dogs again. Dedicated fish room, and maybe when I do these cats from there, I won't have to hear these dogs running around all the time. We're getting towards the end of my first episode podcast, but this was another aquarium that I had. We've bred every single fish in this tank. So we bred the turquoise rainbows, the Madagascars, the angels, a couple Cory cats in here. Didn't breed those Rastaboras, actually. I think we were given those by a friend. And the barbs, too. I'm not a big fan of barbs. I will breed them one day. I'll carry them. Not a big fan. And then we get to the beginning of Creekwood.aquatics. So there was a day, again, I was sort of sitting here, and I went to go pick up a beta from a local beta breeder, and when I walked into his home, he introduced me to the Daphnia magna. And back then, I've heard of Daphnia magna. I just never thought you can get them alive. I always thought they were frozen or they were going to be freeze-dried. But here, I'm looking at these little swimming little shrimp, and I was like, this is amazing. I go, how have I been in this hobby for 20 years and not come across these things? So went home, and I thought about it for a while, and I was like, I can do this. I go, I can produce these Daphnia magna. I think I have the knowledge. I think I have the skills, and I have the space. So let's give it a shot. So I got my first sample of Daphnia magna, and I brought them home, and I put them in a 2.5 gallon tank, and I was feeding yeast, and they were doing great the first day. Next day, there was even more. Third day, even more Daphnia. Exponential growth. I was like, this is awesome. Day 4, all dead. There's the problem. So I go back to the beta guy and I say, hey, I need another beta, and I got to buy more Daphnia. It didn't work. And he was like, okay. So he sold me the fish, he sold me Daphnia. I went back home, put him back in the tank. And I was like, this time, I'm going to rock this. Put them in a 2.5 gallon tank. I fed them, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, all dead. What's going on here? So I didn't want to go back to the beta guy. At that point, I was too embarrassed. So I ordered the culture from Amazon. They came in. I put them outside, natural sunlight. Started backing off of the yeast a little bit. Yeast, for some reason, it's a great food, but it gets real stinky, produces a lot of CO2, and eventually kills the daphnia. So I switched to the green water. I started culturing the green water. I started buying the spirulina powder. Started doing that slowly. Things started to pick up. So I started in that right-hand corner. You can see the two buckets that I originally started this program in. I had those outside, and they were thriving. Um, I felt like I made so much extra daphnia. So after I covered all of my nutritional needs for all of my fish at home, I still had an entire bucket full of daphnia. So I started packaging these up. I started going to different stores around San Antonio. I went to Texas Tropical, South Seas, Salty Fish, Elegant Reef Studios, Aquarium Design. I went to all those places. And a lot of they were interested in the daphnia. They were interested in the daphnia. They were like, "This is novel. We haven't seen these things. We want to carry them." So they started carrying them, and they did well in some stores. Some stores they didn't do so good because people haven't seen these. They aren't marketed. It's a brand new market. If you want these things to sell, you have to like advertise. You have to teach people. You have to show people. So we pulled back from those stores. We still kept our supplies at Texas Tropical and South Seas. And here's our first little display case. So they got a fridge, glass front. So we have our big seller in these stores are the marine phytoplankton Tetrasalcus. Next to it, we have our marine rotifers, and then we have the Daphnia magna, and then eventually we started bringing in the Mona. But these have been like reliable, good selling products. Like every week, I'm replacing stuff, restocking, getting paid, doing more. But that wasn't the end. We continued to grow, we continued to expand. Next thing we did was we opened up our eBay account. And eBay started off slow. I'm just remembering all the struggles. But yeah, we started posting these on eBay, and there was so many established sellers, and they were all like special promotions, sponsored, whatever. So like my listing was like at the very bottom. Like you had to scroll to find Creekwood.aquatics products. But I knew that if I stuck with it, and if I made a good product, if I made it affordable, if I shipped reasonably, people would start to catch on. They would start to see us. And that's what started to happen. It started exponentially. It started off with one order, and then it was 2 orders, and then it was like 10 orders in a week. And I was like, we did it. But that doesn't last forever. We have ups, we have down months, but May was great. June was great. July, August, very hot. People weren't ordering stuff. But at that time, our first trade show, the Gas Ball Trade Show, the Greater Austin Aquarium Society, they had an event. They were looking for vendors. I was second guessing myself the entire time. I kept saying, "You're not big enough for these types of shows. You're gonna go there, you're gonna sell your product, and you're gonna look like a big dummy with an empty table and nothing to sell." But we expanded the culture, so we went from using the buckets to these 40-gallon tubs that we got at the country Petco's. And I think we started with 2 of those. And by the time we got to the trade show, I had a ton of daphnia. So we packed up our daphnia, phyto, rotifers, all that stuff. We hit the road. We got there. We had a good show. We sold out of everything besides marine phytoplankton. This show was not great for marine phytoplankton. But that was one of the points that I realized, like, this is a viable company. People see us. I had one guy stop. He was like, Creekwood.aquatics? I said, yeah. He goes, I ordered from you off of eBay. I said, yeah, you did. So we had that connection. He bought more Daphnia from us, and it was great. It was great to hear someone say, hey, I know of your company. I've ordered from you before. So now the focus is on how do we move on? How do we grow from here? How do we make this a continued success? And again, we expanded the cultures. Off to the right, there's a shed that I bought back in 2019. It was supposed to be my fish room / my wife's office, art studio, whatever she wants it to be on her side. But I said, I can run power over there. I can set up a shop. I can set up a small local shop for the people of Floresville. So we went from just being a live food company to now trying to be a local pet shop, aquaculture facility, whatever you want to call it. So it's super hot this summer, but my parents came from New Jersey, my brother came from Houston to help us, and we trenched out this entire, it was about 100 feet up, digging through sand, digging through limestone. We destroyed our trencher. We just bought it from Home Depot, and we ran that thing till it just wouldn't start anymore. It just crapped out. But I was like, you know what? That's the cost of doing business. Thank you for your service. So that trencher had the time of his life, and then he was done. But that's the whole thing. After that, we got invited to the Aquarium Nation show in Houston, Texas. And again, we were producing our Daphnia. We had some guppies. We had crayfish available at the time. And then we decided to import about 70 betas from Indonesia. So we brought those 70 betas to the show. We put them out there, and they sold. They did pretty good. I ended up coming home with 32 betas. That, because of the weather right now, they aren't moving, but we're hoping that once the weather clears up, people start placing orders. Even like all the live food orders have kind of slowed down with the country being frozen. But again, once things warm up, we plan on producing, we plan on pushing out, we plan on continuing to grow, and we're continuing to grow out this little podcast. But this was just an intro to Aquarist Assemble. And here's the end. Highlights of my last year was I hit my goal of having 100 subscribers on YouTube. 100 subscribers it might not be a lot to most people, but for me, I was like, that is more people than I ever thought wanted to listen to our message, to watch our content. I had my graphics designer guy, Ben, one of the nicest, kindest guys in the world. He created all of my graphics for me. They're beautiful. I love them. Thank you, Ben. He even created, oh my God, camera's reversed. But Cameron, our mascot over here, the Daphnia Magna. There's a shed at the bottom. That's when I was putting up all the sheetrock. I'm not a sheetrock person, but I'm learning. But we're hoping to get that whole thing opened up. I was saying February. Now I know how foolish I sound, so hopefully I have it open sometime before June. But that's coming. There's some of the betas that we brought in. It was such a cool event to be out there in Houston. You talk to all these people. It got more traction to the website. I got more YouTube followers for that event. There's some of the guppies that we bred that we brought to the show, the platinum dumbos. And then there's me holding up my new beta enclosures that we just invested our money in. But this is all great. This is my story. I'm proud of it. It's continuing to grow, and I am hoping a year from now we're even bigger. Maybe we'll have 200 followers. Maybe we'll have 500. Maybe we'll have 1,000. We'll see. But we are going to continue to grow. We're never going to give up. We're always going to push. We're always going to do more. This is Nelson with Creekwood.aquatics, Aquarium Assemble. Thank you for listening.